Hello students, I am Dr. Srinivas, Assistant Professor in Department of Orthopedics, Oxford Medical College. Today I will be discussing about fractures and dislocations. A fracture is a break in a continuity of the bone. It is classified into various types based on the etiology or based on the displacement of fracture, relationship to the external environment, complexity of treatment, quantum of force causing a fracture, and pattern of fracture. On the basis of etiology, it can be classified into traumatic fracture or pathological fracture or a stress fracture. The causes of traumatic fractures are road traffic accident, sports, fall from height, building collapse. Pathological fractures can be due to various reasons, example osteoporosis, osteosarcoma. Stress fractures, they are seen in athletes and military recruits, more commonly seen in the metatarsal bones. X-ray shows a hairline fracture. This X-ray shows more callus which has been formed around the stress fracture. Based on the displacement, it is classified into undisplaced fracture and displaced fractures. The various types of displacements are shifts, angulations, and rotations. It can also be classified into closed and open fractures, also called as simple and compound fractures respectively. In an open fracture, the fracture is exposed to the external environment because the skin and soft tissue has been damaged. This is the clinical image. Based on the pattern, it is divided into transverse fracture, oblique fracture, spiral fracture, comminuted fracture, segmental fracture, compression fracture, green stick fracture. This is the transverse fracture, this is the oblique fracture, this is the spiral fracture, this is comminuted fracture, this is compression fracture, this is green stick fracture, this is the segmental fracture. Based on the location, it can be a proximal third fracture, middle third or distal third fractures. Based on the anatomical classification, it can be a epiphyseal fracture, metaphyseal fracture or a diaphyseal fracture. Radiological classification into intra-articular fracture, extra-articular fracture and partially articular fracture. The AO or the OTA or the Muller's alphanumeric classification. This is done by giving some numbers, for example 3, 2, B2. So this is done by knowing which bone is fractured, where in the bone is fractured, like that. Each bone is assigned a number. Humerus is given number 1, forearm bones number 2, femur is number 3, like that. If the fracture is in the proximal segment, the number is 1. If it is in the diaphysis, number is 2. Distal segment, number is 3. In the diaphyseal fracture, if it is a simple fracture, then it is type A. See, now we can give a number to the fracture 3, 2, B, 2. It means that femur is fractured in the diaphyseal region and it is a wedge type and it is a bending wedge group. And various fractures are classified by different names. For example, proximal fractures of the humerus, they are classified according to Neer's classification. Then distal radius fractures can be classified into various classifications, example Frickman's classification, Fernandez classification, etc. Coming to clinical features of the fractures. First is history. In the history, you should elicit various positive history findings. Patient will give a history of trauma. Trauma can be direct injury or indirect injury. It can be a significant injury or a trivial injury. Patient will complain of pain, loss of function, deformity, swelling, discharging wounds. In the examination, on inspection, first examine the gait. Patient will be unable to walk or he will have a antalgic gait. There will be an abnormal attitude because the upper limb fractures will be supported by the normal other limb. Deformity should be noted, swelling, wasting of muscles in chronic cases, skin changes. Attitude. Attitude is the posture of the patient he adapts for maximum comfort. It is the position of ease. Deformity. In clavicle fractures, you can note the deformity. There will be a bulge at the fracture site. Swelling. Swelling due to fracture can be because of prominence of the bone ends or because of hematoma or because of sympathetic effusion or because of edema. Skin changes that are present can be lacerations, bruises, inflammatory changes, sinuses and scars. On palpation, various signs of inflammation, signs of fractures, distal neurovascular deficits, neighboring joints, organ injuries. Signs of inflammation. There will be raised temperature, that is scalar, rubor is redness, dolor is tenderness, tumor is swelling. Signs of fractures. Bony tenderness will be present, bony irregularity will be present, abnormal mobility will be present, absence of transmitted movements and crepitus. Abnormal mobility is any abnormal movement. Suppose there is a fracture of the humerus, then at the middle of the arm there will be an abnormal movement. Normally movements occur only in the joints. If the fracture is near to the joint, that is juxta-articular fractures, then you will find abnormal range of movement in the joints. Then absence of transmitted movements is because there is discontinuity in the bone, it prevents transmitted movements. For example, when you move the foot, when you rotate the foot, even the femur should also rotate because the movement is getting transmitted. But if there is a fracture of the tibia, then when you are rotating the foot, the femur or the thigh will not rotate. That means the transmitted movements are absent because of fracture. Crepitus. Crepitus is grating sound or sensation that is heard or felt due to rubbing of the fracture ends. After inspection and palpation, next is movements. Here we can note there will be a restriction of movements, both the active movements and the passive movements. This is because of pain and muscle spasm. In measurements, we can find that the limb will be shortened because of overlapping at the fracture site, and wasting will be seen in long standing cases. Investigations that are to be done are general investigations like blood, urine, ECG, chest x-ray. These things have to be done when a surgery is anticipated. X-ray of the fracture site should be done. CT scan and MRI will be done if required. These are the X-ray images of the various fractures. Humerus fracture can be seen here, fracture of the forearm, fracture of the radius in the wrist region. These are X-ray of the lower limb fractures. Coming to the treatment. Treatment you can remember in 4 R's, that is resuscitation, reduction, retention and rehabilitation. It can also be described in 3 phases: emergency treatment, definitive care treatment and rehabilitative treatment. Resuscitation. Here we are first addressing the life of the patient. We have to save the life first. Remember A, B, C, D. A is airway and cervical spine immobilization. B is breathing. C is circulation. D is disability due to neurological injury. Once you think that the life is stable, then address the control the bleeding by compression or by putting a bandage. Always keep first aid kit handy. Emergency care. This is done at the accident site and during transport. Splinting should be done. Ice therapy, compression, elevation can be done. IV fluids and blood transfusion can be done if possible. Splinting. Any strong, sturdy object available should be used for splinting. Always assess the distal pulse and nerve injury before splinting and after splinting. Advantages of splinting are: it relieves pain, prevents further damage, prevents complications, makes the transportation of the patient easier. The splints that can be used for immobilization at the fracture site can be sticks, folded newspaper, umbrella, or wooden scale. Then transport the patient to the hospital. Ice therapy can be given. Compression can be done by crepe bandage. Elevation of the limb should be done above the level of the heart. A pillow can be used for lower limb fractures. For upper limb fractures, you can use sling or pillow. The next R will be the reduction. Reduction is nothing but setting a displaced fracture through proper alignment. The three methods are closed manipulation, open reduction, and continuous traction. Closed manipulation is realigning a displaced bone by feeling through the soft tissue, may require general anesthesia. Continuous traction. This is used to counter the forces causing the displacement. Example in intertrochanteric fractures. The disadvantage of this is it requires prolonged bed rest and bed sores can happen because traction will have to be given for a long duration. Open reduction. Here the fracture is surgically exposed and the fracture fragments are reduced under vision, and internal fixation can be done simultaneously. The advantages of this being less hospital stay, decreased period of bed rest. Indications for open reduction are failure of closed reduction, displaced intra-articular fractures, displaced epiphyseal injuries, major avulsion fractures like fracture of patella, and non-union. Next R is the retention or immobilization. This prevents displacement or angulation. It also prevents movement and relieves the pain. There are non-operative and operative methods. Non-operative methods are strapping, sling, cast or slab, functional bracing, traction. Operative methods are internal and external fixation. Strapping. When there is a phalanx fracture, one finger is strapped to the adjacent finger. This is an example of buddy strapping. Sling. Sling. When there is a fracture of the upper extremity, a sling can be applied for immobilization. Example, triangular sling application for clavicle fractures. Cast. These are the various types of cast to be applied for fractures. Plaster of Paris is calcium sulfate hemihydrate powder. When water is added to it, it gets hydrated and hardens over a period of time. It is called as a slab when it covers part of the circumference of the limb. It is called as a cast when it covers complete circumference of the limb. For putting a spica, POP should be applied to the full circumference of the limb with part of the trunk. Functional bracing. Here brace is applied but the joints are not included, that is the joints are left free, they are not immobilized. This is usually done once the fracture becomes sticky, that is it may take around 3 weeks. The advantage of bracing method, it prevents joint stiffness. Splint, it immobilizes the fracture temporarily. It aids in the transportation or temporary treatment. Example, Kramer wire splint and Thomas splint. Traction. Traction helps in reduction of fractures and prevents deformity or contractures. Example, gallows traction. This is functional brace, this is Kramer wire splint, this is gallows traction. Internal fixation is another method of retention or immobilization. Here the bones are held in place with an internal implant. It can be a metallic or non-metallic device. Indications for internal fixation are unstable fracture, rigid immobilization, to allow early mobilization of the patient when open reduction is necessary. Methods of internal fixation are, it can be used with wires. Wire is of two types, steel wires and K wire. Steel wires or SS wires is used for fracture of the patella, comminuted fractures of the large bones. K wire is used for fixation of small bones of the hand and feet. Intramedullary fixation with the help of hollow rods which are made of stainless steel. They are of three types. It can be a standard intramedullary nail or a interlocking nail or a flexible medullary nail. This is a flexible intramedullary nail. And screws can be used for internal fixation. They are done for fixing small fragments to the main bone. Fracture of the medial malleolus can be fixed with a malleolar screw. There are different types of screws. This is a cancellous screw. This is a cortical screw. Plates and screws. Plates are devices which help in fixation of the fracture. They have to be kept on the surface of the bone and fixed with screws. The advantages of internal fixation are minimal need for external immobilization, that is POP, slab or cast is not required when internal fixation is done. Early mobility of the patient. Joints do not get stiff. Muscle functions remain good. So rehabilitation will be early. However, there are certain disadvantages of internal fixation, they being infection, non-union, and they might be costly. The other operative method is the external fixation. Here a steel frame is present outside the limb. Pins are put to hold the bone to the frame. External fixation is usually done in open fractures. Management of open fractures. Emergency care. At the site of accident, apply pressure on the wound to stop bleeding. Wash with clean tap water or saline if available, and cover with clean cloth because bandage might not be available. Do a splinting. In the emergency department, wound care should be given in the form of irrigation with saline, splinting, give broad spectrum antibiotics, tetanus prophylaxis, X-ray should be done. Then definitive care. Here wound debridement can be done and suturing of the wounds can be done, and manage the fracture as described previously even for as in closed fractures. Next, the fourth R is the rehabilitation. Here physiotherapy treatment is given. This begins at the time of injury. Maximum possible function is regained. It consists of joint mobilization and functional use of the limbs. Joint mobilization is done to prevent joint stiffness. Next, coming to dislocations. Dislocation is complete loss of congruity of a joint, whereas subluxation is partial loss of congruity of a joint. Types of dislocation: it can be acquired or it can be congenital. Acquired can be traumatic or pathological. Pathological causes can be infection, paralysis or inflammation. No joint is immune from dislocation, that is, any joint can get dislocated. However, most common joints that are dislocated are temporomandibular joint in dental practice, others for orthopedic practice shoulder, hip, elbow, etc. Signs and symptoms: deformity or abnormal appearance or abnormal attitude will be present, pain and tenderness aggravated by movement, loss of normal function, joint may be locked in one position, there will be gross restriction of movements, swelling of the joint can be noted. Investigations that are to be done are radiographs and CT scan whenever required. Principles of management of a dislocation: acute dislocations should be reduced as soon as possible. Open reduction is rarely necessary. Closed reduction with intravenous analgesia and sedation or under GA should be attempted first for most of the uncomplicated dislocations before resorting to open reduction. Excessive force should not be used, otherwise forceful manipulation can lead to a fracture. There are some conditions when the closed reduction will be impossible. They are interposition of soft tissue, bony fragments or buttonholing in the capsule. The complications of dislocations and their treatment. Acute complications: it can cause injury to the peripheral nerves and vessels. Chronic complications are unreduced dislocation, recurrent dislocation, traumatic and secondary osteoarthritis, joint stiffness, avascular necrosis and myositis ossificans. Coming to fracture healing. Fracture healing is a complex process that requires recruitment of appropriate cells and subsequent expression of the appropriate genes at the right time and in the right anatomical location. Prerequisites for bone healing are adequate blood supply and adequate mechanical stability. Long bones have three blood supplies. They are the nutrient artery, periosteal vessels and metaphyseal vessels. There are 5 stages of fracture healing: stage of hematoma, inflammation, granulation, repair and remodeling. When there is a tissue disruption, it results in hematoma at the fracture site. Increased capillary permeability results in local inflammatory response. Histiocytes, polymorph neutrophils invade and clear the debris. In the stage of repair, pluripotent mesenchymal cells from the cambium layer of periosteum, they produce new bone or callus. Capillary buds grow into the fracture site. Periosteal callus, this forms along the periphery of the fracture site. Intramedullary callus, this forms in the center of the fracture site. Not only this, there are not only osteoblasts, even chemical and mechanical factors also stimulate callus formation and mineralization. initially woven bone is formed. Here you can see the external callus, periosteal callus, intramedullary callus. Remodeling, stage of remodeling. Here woven bone is converted to lamellar bone by deposition of the bone crystals and alignment of collagen fibers, and medullary cavity is reconstituted and bone is restructured in response to stress and strain. This is an image showing the stage of hematoma, granulation tissue, callus formation and remodeling. There are two mechanisms for bone healing. It can be either a direct or primary bone healing and indirect or secondary bone healing. Direct bone healing. Here this is present when there is no motion at the fracture site, that is when there is rigid internal fixation as in plate fixation. Here there is no formation of fracture callus. In direct bone healing, a cutting cone is formed that crosses the fracture site. The fracture is healed by the formation of numerous secondary osteons, and it is a slow process. It takes months to years. Indirect bone healing. This is the more common type of bone healing occurring in fractures that are not rigidly fixed, as in intramedullary nails, K-wires, etc. Bridging periosteal callus and the medullary callus re-establish the structural continuity. The callus subsequently undergoes endochondral ossification. The process is fairly rapid. There are various factors that affect the fracture healing. It can be systemic factors or local factors. Systemic factors are age, activity level, nutritional status, etc. Local factors like factors which are independent of injury, treatment or complications, type of bone, radiation necrosis, infection, etc. Now we will discuss about the fracture complications. They can be immediate, early, delayed or late complications. Immediate complications. They can be systemic or local. Systemic is hypovolemic shock. Local complications are injuries to the major vessels, muscles, tendons, etc. Early complications can also be divided into systemic and local. Systemic complications like shock, ARDS, fat embolism syndrome, DVT, septicemia. Local complications can be infection, compartment syndrome, Sudeck's dystrophy, Volkmann's ischemic contracture, avascular necrosis, joint stiffness, osteomyelitis, myositis ossificans, osteoarthritis. Late complications can be imperfect union of the fracture like delayed union, non-union, malunion and cross union. Shock. Here hypovolemia is the most common cause. Here hypotension and tachycardia develop. It can be fatal, it can cause death. Treatment is by fluids, blood transfusion. Other complication is injury to the blood vessels, injury to the artery or veins. It can lead to compartment syndrome, gangrene or even death. Nerve injuries. Seddon's classification of nerve injuries into neuropraxia, axonotmesis and neurotomesis. In neuropraxia there is only minor contusion. It is a temporary and recovery is complete. In axonotmesis the axon is broken and spontaneous recovery is expected. In neurotomesis there is complete anatomic section and no recovery is possible. The tests that have to be conducted in nerve injuries are strength duration curve, nerve conduction velocity, and electromyography. What are the principles of treatment in nerve injuries? Splinting, either static or dynamic splints. Physiotherapy like exercises, wax bath, and electrical stimulation. Various nerve surgeries that may be required are neurolysis, neurorrhaphy. Neurorrhaphy is repair of the nerve, and nerve grafting. Other surgeries are tendon transfers and arthrodesis. These are the splints done for wrist drop. These are the splints for foot drop. Another important complication is the fat embolism syndrome. Fat embolism syndrome is a serious manifestation of fat embolism, occasionally causing multi-system dysfunction, mainly the lungs and the brain. Causes are long bone fractures like in femur and tibia, pelvic fractures, polytrauma, and multiple fractures. The exact mechanism is not known, so two hypotheses have been proposed: mechanical hypothesis and the biochemical hypothesis. In mechanical hypothesis, they have stated that obstruction of the vessels and capillaries occur due to the fat droplets. They reach the pulmonary capillaries from the fracture site, then it goes into the systemic circulation. Then the emboli can reach the cerebral or renal vessels, leading to CNS and renal dysfunction. In biochemical hypothesis, they have told that it is because of the toxicity of the free fatty acid radicals. These affect the damage the pneumocytes, causing abnormalities in the gas exchange. Clinical features: they are usually seen 1 to 3 days after the fracture. Pulmonary features: respiratory failure and ARDS in the form of tachypnea and dyspnea. Hypoxemia may be seen. Hypotension, decreased cardiac output, and arrhythmias. Neurological signs are confusion, headache, or even coma. Dermatological signs are reddish brown petechial rashes that are present in the upper body, chest. It can be present in the oral mucous membrane and conjunctiva too. Investigations: arterial blood gas will show decreased partial pressure of oxygen. It can become less than 60 mm of mercury. Blood tests show anemia or thrombocytopenia. Chest X-ray shows multiple flocculent shadows, that is snowstorm appearance. CT and MRI of the brain can show emboli or infarctions. Chest X-ray showing snowstorm appearance. MRI showing emboli and infarctions. Treatment: prophylaxis. Immobilization and early internal fixation of fractures can prevent the fat embolism syndrome. Steroids should be given in high doses. Medical treatment: give support treatment for cardiovascular and respiratory issues. Maintain the blood, fluid, and electrolyte balance. Albumin is recommended because it binds to the free fatty acids and reduces their damage. Oxygen administration is a must. Heparin may be required. Thrombolytics like streptokinase may be required. Compartment syndrome: it is a painful, limb or life-threatening condition due to interruption of blood flow. If left untreated, it can lead to cellular ischemia. It is characterized by 5 P's, that is pallor, pain, paresthesia, pulselessness, paralysis. The treatment is fasciotomy. When the pressure in the osseofacial compartment becomes more than 30 millimeters of mercury, then it is an indication to do the fasciotomy. Pathology is the vicious cycle. Whenever there is injury, it leads to a tissue swelling. This leads to increased compartment pressure. Then the perfusion pressure is decreased. This leads to local hypoxia. This causes cell membrane damage. This leads to tissue cycle. This leads to tissue swelling and it becomes a vicious cycle. The treatment is fasciotomy. That is, we have to cut the skin and the deep fascia so that the muscles are decompressed and the wound has to be left open. Another important complication is the non-union. When the process of fracture healing comes to a standstill before its completion, then the fracture is said to have gone into non-union. Causes. Patient causes can be because of diabetes mellitus, smoking, immunocompromise, NSAIDs. Bone. When there is poor blood supply, poor hematoma, infection. Injury causes are soft tissue injury, bone loss, intact fellow bone. Example, when the fibula is intact, the tibia can go for non-union. Soft tissue interposition. Surgeon causes like a gap or distraction at the fracture site, poor splintage. Signs. Painless abnormal mobility. Such painless movement is diagnostic of non-union as distinct from delayed union. In delayed union, there will be presence of pain and mobility will not be there at the fracture site. Classification of non-union. It can be aseptic or septic non-union. The subtypes being atrophic, oligotrophic, hypertrophic and frank pseudarthrosis. Diagnosis can be made by the X-ray findings. Here the fracture is still visible, that is, fracture is not yet obliterated, and at the bone ends of the fracture may be sclerosed. CT scan helps in better delineation. Bone scan also shows the findings. When CT scan is not available, bone scan can be done. Here it shows decreased uptake because of bone formation has stopped. This is atrophic non-union. This is hypertrophic non-union. This is elephant foot non-union. Here non-union is seen because of the gap. The arrow mark shows the non-union. Fracture of the femoral neck which has gone for non-union. Fracture of the scaphoid gone for non-union. Fracture of the tibia gone for non-union. Fracture of the medial malleolus. Right. Fracture of the lateral condyle of the humerus, it has gone for non-union. Treatment of non-union. Conservative and surgical treatment. Conservative treatment, if the patient is symptomless, there is no need of treatment. Sometimes only bracing might be enough. Electrical stimulation can be given. Ultrasound stimulation can be given. Operative treatment for hypertrophic non-union is rigid internal fixation. For atrophic non-union, rigid internal fixation with bone grafting has to be done. Bone morphogenic protein injections can also be given. Post-traumatic osteoarthritis. It is also called as secondary osteoarthritis. Painful inflammation of a joint caused due to wear and tear that occurs in a joint as the direct or indirect result of injury. Etiology. Trauma will give rise to alteration in the line of weight bearing and joint surfaces become irregular, and this causes secondary osteoarthritis. Clinical features. Pain is the earliest finding. Swelling can be present, stiffness can be present initially because of pain and muscle spasm, later because of capsular contracture. Instability can be present. Signs of traumatic osteoarthritis: tenderness, crepitus, peripheral osteophytes, deformity, effusion, limitation of movement, subluxation, and wasting. Here this image shows osteophytes, thinning of cartilage, cartilage fragments or loose bodies. Investigations: X-ray findings are narrowing of the joint space because of thinning of the cartilage, subchondral sclerosis, subchondral cysts, osteophytes, loose bodies, joint deformity. Arthroscopy might be required when loose bodies are suspected and when they need to be removed. X-ray showing secondary osteoarthritis. Treatment of osteoarthritis: conservative and surgical. Conservative: drugs like analgesics and chondroprotective agents containing glucosamine and chondroitin sulfate, viscosupplementation injections like sodium hyaluronic acid into the joints, intraarticular injection. Avoid stress and strain, local heat, exercises, counter irritants. Surgical treatment being joint debridement, osteotomy, joint replacement surgeries, and arthroscopic chondroplasty. In joint replacement, the damaged cartilage is removed and replaced by metallic implants. This is total hip replacement of the hip joint. This is total hip replacement of the elbow joint. Next complication is infection. They are more common in open fractures. It can be superficial infection or a deep infection. Image showing the open fracture. Open fracture has become complicated into a gangrene. Here it has become a chronic osteomyelitis with sinuses. Treatment is first attempt prevention by giving adequate initial treatment of open fractures. Use sterile operating conditions. Once the infection has settled in, the treatment is like osteomyelitis, where we have to do curettage, saucerization, debridement, and using IV broad spectrum antibiotics. Thank you all for your attention.